I'm the Genius Asian. Welcome to the Genius family.
Today, I am going to show you how to replace these fences with new ones. Because wind will not pass through a privacy fence, you need strong posts to hold the fence in place during high wind events. So the posts need to be set in fresh concrete. It is, however, very difficult to dig out the concrete that was holding the posts for the old fence. If you can place the posts for the new fence in slightly different places, you will not need to dig out all the old concrete. For example, there was 8 feet between these 2 old posts. This corner post has to stay where it is, but this one you could move to be 7 feet away rather than 8. This way, all the posts in between the 2 ends can be shifted, and you only need to dig out the old concrete for the 2 end posts. For a 6-foot-high fence, posts need to be planted in an 8-inch diameter hole that is 2 feet deep and surrounded by dry concrete. Check the contractor's work at this point, because you have no way to verify it is 2 feet deep once the concrete is filled in. Also, you are supposed to add some concrete into the bottom of the hole before setting the 4x4 post into the hole. Concrete should come higher than the dirt to reduce post rotting. Because the contractors offer 6 years of warranty, and boards may rot before the posts, they may not be motivated to do the best job setting posts. Another situation is when the fence ends at the house. Make sure to install this sheet metal as a termite shield between the post and the wall. If you don't have lasers to line up your posts in a straight line, you may use a couple of strings to help with the alignment. With the alignment guide in place, you can dig holes for other posts with a machine or shovel. A pry bar or chipping tools are also useful to deal with concrete when necessary. After trimming the posts to be the same height, fasten a 2x4 as the top rail. Measure between the 2 posts and cut a 2x4 as a bottom rail and a 2x8 or 2x12 as a kickboard. Then tap the kickboard in between the posts and fasten it to the posts. Then fasten the bottom rail to the posts as well as to the kickboard. There are 2 1x1 strips to attach to the top rail and 2 more 1x1 strips to attach to the bottom rail. On one side of the fence only, install 1 strip at the top and 1 strip at the bottom. Make a privacy fence by laying boards in an overlapping fashion. The professional term is board on board or louvered. Put the boards in place, and as you put the boards in place, you will nail board to board and also fasten boards to the rails. You may need to use a level to make sure that the boards are vertical. Then fasten the remaining 2 1x1 strips on this side of the fence to close the boards in. In addition to the top and bottom strips, vertical 1x1 strips are fastened to the posts to close the gaps between boards and the posts. For our louvered fence, the right vertical 1x1 strip is on our side. The left strip is on our neighbor's side. For board-on-board fences, the vertical strips could be on either side. See, this 6-year-old fence has some big gaps. This fence can be seen in our previously published video called Quickest Way to Build a Fence in a Few Hours, Lessons Learned. At that time, we did not know about the vertical strips. So you should ask your contractors about that. Another lesson learned. After checking that the fence is straight, water the concrete, and you are done. Our part 1 of the DIY fence video derived the board overlap amount. Check out that video. Our part 2 of the DIY fence video is building fence gates. You may enjoy some highlights of that video here. If I place boards next to each other to make a gate, as the boards naturally dry and shrink, gradually you will see gaps emerging between them. If you don't want these gaps in your fence, you will need to build a privacy fence. There are 2 kinds of privacy fences, board on board or louvered. Step 1. Cut two 2x4 pieces of lumber with length W, which is the gate width. Step 2. Fasten 3 boards to the 2x4 to be layer 1. We don't want the gate to be too heavy, so the minimum 6 boards needed are sufficient for this gate. With the board width B, the space between 2 boards is S. The formula for the overlap part is given by this equation. I have not seen anyone providing this formula. I used simple algebra to derive it, shown at the end of this video. Step 3. Fasten the layer 2 boards. When I fasten the last board, since there is no first layer underneath, I used a small scrap board so that this board can be fastened normally. Step 4. Flip the gate, cut a 2x4 to fit diagonally. Fasten this 2x4 to the others. Step 5. Fasten boards to the diagonal 2x4. Use a tape measure to aid positioning of the fastener. Step 6. Fasten hinges to the gate. Note that if the gate opens inward, you can fasten the hinge plates on the top of the 2x4s, while making sure the gate can be opened 180 degrees. That is, the 2 plates from a closed position of 180 degrees swings open to 360 degrees. If the gate opens outward, then you need to place the hinge plate between the board and the 2x4s. That is, the 2 plates from a closed position of 90 degrees will swing open to 270 degrees. Step 7. Place the gate into the gate opening. Before fastening the hinge plates, make sure the gate is leveled. Note that I put a couple of wood scraps and a carjack under the 2x4 to adjust the vertical position of the gate, and use a shim on the lock side to wedge horizontally to make sure the hinge side has the smallest gap possible. After fastening the hinge plates, I remove the carjack and the shim, and the gate is hung perfectly. Now let's look at a gate with a total of 7 boards, an odd number of boards. It is built similarly. Notice that this gate uses nails, and the previous gate used deck screws to fasten it. In the future, I may follow up to compare if screws or nails hold up better, since these 2 gates were built at the same time and experienced the same weather conditions. If the gate is too high, you can trim it down. Let's see how this kind of latch works. You close the door from the front, it latches. Look at from the back to see how it latches when it closes. Now look at it from the side view. You first mount this housing and then cover it with a strip so that the gate to post gap is covered. The strip was prepared with a cut so that the opening lever can come through. Now look at a second kind of latch. When you close the gate, this is how it latches. Look at the side view to see how the lever opens it from the front. Similarly, we make a strip to cover the gap between the gate and the post. The strip was prepared with a cut so that the opening lever can come through. Now look at the third kind of latch. It is pretty easy to install. You may use a string to open it from the front. See this gate? It does not have full-length boards, so it is pretty light and does not need heavy hardware either. This could be a kid's summer project, by the way. When building a privacy fence or fence gate, many people simply estimate the amount of overlap and number of boards. For this gate with 7 boards, you first lay 4 boards in one layer using symmetrical spacing, and then lay 3 boards on top of the first layer with symmetrical spacing. So the first problem is that it is easy to estimate roughly the amount of overlap with an odd number of boards. But when you have an even number of boards, it is not as easy because it is not symmetrical. The second problem is that to estimate the board overlap amount, you need to place all boards first and then adjust each overlap amount. It would be nice if you can determine the exact overlap beforehand and nail one board at a time. This will save you time. I will derive the overlap formula using simple algebra for both odd and even numbers of boards. Assume the gate width is W, the board width is B, and the overlap amount is X. The total number of boards is N, equal to 2M for an even number of boards because both layers have the same number of boards, and 2M plus 1 for an odd number of boards. When you have an odd number of boards, the first layer has M plus 1 boards and the second layer M number of boards, for a total of 2M plus 1. The spacing between each board for the first layer is B minus 2X. Thus, width W satisfies this equation. Rearrange the equation. When you have 2M even number of boards, both layers have M number of boards. The spacing between each board for the first layer is still B minus 2X. Thus, width W satisfies this equation. Rearrange the equation. So if the total number of boards is N equals 2M plus 1, or 2M for odd or even number of boards, is our final formula. So once you know exactly the amount of overlap, you may simply lay and nail one board at a time. I have not seen anyone providing this formula, so make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel, because my videos always provide original and useful information.
Share this with people who you know that need it. Leave your own genius tips in the comment section below. Don't forget, I'm the Genius Asian. Subscribe for more useful videos.